My name is Andrea Cipriano. I'm relentlessly real and always human. Hey guys, it's Andrea. Welcome back to the Crime Sheet. I know it's been a while since I've made YouTube content, but I'm in the middle of getting my master's in forensic psychology, so virtual learning during the pandemic has taken some getting used to, but I'm really happy to be back making content for you guys. And today I have something really special. I want to introduce you to my friends Ashlee and Rachael from Uncovered. Uncovered is the latest interactive cold case database that visualizes missing and murdered case information. They collect evidence on not just the overview of a case with important information, but they also put faces to names of all of the individuals involved. Uncovered also includes in-depth timelines, so you can develop a minute-by-minute understanding of the evidence and look at important locations on Google Maps. Soon, you'll also be able to join on conversations about a case, answer questions, and share collectively informed theories. Stay tuned until the end of this video where Ashlee teaches me a new investigative tip that I will definitely be adding to my arsenal, and where you can also learn about how you can get your free copy of the Citizen Detective Guide from Uncovered. So here to talk more about the platform and themselves, here's Ashlee and Rachael.
I'm Ashlee. I'm one of the co-founders with Uncovered, and we are creating a digital platform, sort of a one-stop shop for all the cold case information that exists. So an interactive database where you could come and see visualized cold cases. But not only that there could be this opportunity for people to connect and build community around the information that exists and being a better consumer of information. My focus is on the community engagement and the marketing side. And I think Rachael and I complement each other really well. And I'll let Rachael introduce herself.
I'm Rachael, and I work a lot on the case research and visualization of the cases. So I'm the one that you probably don't want to look at my Google search history because it might be kind of scary, right? We all wonder. But yeah, I joined Uncovered about a year ago. And I have a history in forensic psychology. I'm a researcher by day, so it kind of fits with my skill set, data analysis, all of that stuff. And then I'm also getting my PhD in forensic psychology. So it all kind of fit together there.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a cool platform. I know, Ashlee, when you reached out to me like all those months ago and I saw the website, I was like, oh my God, like this is totally where I think like citizen detective work and online cold case stuff is definitely going to go.
For me, I mean, I always consumed true crime from a young age. I remember a pivotal case growing up in southern Indiana, and it was the Shanda case. And that struck me because the victim was 12 at the time and I was 11. And that was something that I remember just, it really stuck with me because I was able to humanize of this person is my age and this is not too far from my hometown. And it was a horrific case. There's just so many details that are in it, but that was a case that I remember distinctively knowing what was happening besides just, oh, here's shows on TV or here's some scary stuff. So that kind of stuck with me, just this notion of there are people attached to the stuff that you hear on the news. And then it almost became just something of like, I'm always consuming, I'm always reading. And then when I went away to college, actually one of our other co-founders, Anna, her and I kind of bonded over just, hey, have you read this? Did you see this? Let's watch this documentary together. And her cousin actually went missing when we were in college. And that's still a cold case to this day here in Indiana. And that was something that her and I, talked about. So it's always kind of been in my periphery, but just the notion of community around that has been something that I'm really excited to be able to interject into something that I am passionate about as a consumer, but I want to be able to provide more of an advocacy role within that.
Mm-hmm. So I had an entry point, like a lot of people. I listened to Serial, and of course that was just great storytelling and interesting. But I came in through the wrongful conviction angle, and it is actually what the focus of my dissertation is on. But something about wrongful convictions really incensed me and came in with that social justice angle. And then I just started widening my circle of interest and really looking at all of these great podcasts out here that has all of this great true crime content. So yeah, I have too many podcasts to count on my my phone at this point.
Yeah, no, me too. I definitely connect to that. That's definitely a great segue into the next question that I had of, you guys could have made a podcast. You could have made a YouTube channel or a blog. Why an interactive platform?
That's a great question. And that's something when people don't necessarily know what we're doing, they initially think that we have a podcast and they're like, where do I subscribe? And I'm like, well, you can get our email. But
yeah.
And Rachel and I were just talking about this today because we have this great opportunity to tell people what we're building and engage with them and see this shared vision and mission. We're not content creators for the most part. I mean, we're really good curators of the great information that's out there. And this is what makes Uncovered so unique, is this idea that we're able to pull in all the publicly available information, all the publicly available data. So whether that's court documents that we're able to get through a FOIA or newspaper articles or a really researched great podcast or documentary, we're able to pull all those things in. So to be able to create something that hasn't been created for the most part, that gives you an opportunity to look at all the accurate, valid information that exists on all the different mediums is truly awesome.
And I think one thing that we always like to talk about, and which Ashlee just mentioned, is there is so much great content out there right now, but it's all sort of in bits and pieces. And what Uncovered wants to do is start putting all those pieces together from everywhere under one thing, so we can have the bigger picture of the puzzle, and we can say, okay, all of these pieces are already existing, they're already out there, and then we can see where there's some information missing, and that's how we can activate our community. I mean, I'm a researcher, not a content creator, and so I think that's how we can uniquely contribute in this space.
The research side, especially for cold cases, can be really difficult because some of them are super old. Other ones, they just don't have an online presence. So I'm curious to learn more about what is your process like in picking a case, and what do you look for solvability?
It is difficult because there are so many cases out there. First, Uncovered has a stated mission to cover those cases that have seen less media attention and less focus. So persons of color, sex workers, LGBTQ, those are a really strong focus of ours. But then we've also put together a little case algorithm that looks at whether we have partners in a podcast or partners in other researchers, or looks at the case characteristics of are they indigenous? Are they gay? And then you're right in terms of cases. Each case kind of requires a little different, because you're right. If it's newer, it has all kinds of social media footprint and all kinds of things. The older cases are harder.
Ashlee and Rachael also talked about the importance of looking to see if cases have a birthday or an anniversary coming up to kind of catch that local media attention. And this is also where the importance of having a true crime community comes into play, so that everyone can kind of share that information as well.
And every day we're having people reach out to us to say, hey, you should cover this case. We did a survey at the end of 2019 asking 500 people just how they consume true crime, cold cases, and what would motivate them for action. And number one was knowing the victim, which we know is definitely important. And number two is also being local to that area where the crime took place. So if we're able to look at some of those features too, and have people reach out to say, this is a case I've been covering, I've already done some of my own research, which we're blown away that people are already doing that. That was our theory when we started working on Uncovered, but to have people say, I've got this Google Sheet, or I've got this document, or I've got this whole case file on this case that I really care about, that's been great. And that gives us a leg up to then bring our team, our expertise in to be able to visualize, and then find other people in the community who say that, hey, I've got this expertise in X, I know how to do Y, I can help on this case too. So that's been just such a great process for us along the way.
If you're into true crime and you see yourself as a citizen detective, you know how important community is. And not just to share information and ideas, but also to learn from other people and learn new skill sets. And Uncovered wants to facilitate this kind of community, so everyone can kind of share what their special skill set is, as Ashlee calls it, their superpower, and so that we can all be better consumers of the information that we see and be better at trying to help with spreading information.
Yeah, whenever anyone signs up, I ask to get virtual coffee with them just because I want to meet them and know like how their process is. Mm-hmm. But I also ask like, what's your superpower? And we have people who have completely different day jobs, but what they've been able to curate is their own sort of like hidden talent, or that they're like, I'm really good at this, I just don't know how to apply it. We have this wonderful woman who lives out in Long Island who does data, or who digitizes documents. She's worked for like public archives, and she's like, just send me your PDFs. I'll sit there and just type, and then I'll digitize it. So then our team can then take it and then put it in a visualized state for people. We also have another subscriber who's just amazing at Google Maps. So that's been tremendous for us to be able to then look at like, how can we visualize on a map and knowing tips and tricks that we don't know to find information. So that power of collective impact is huge, that there are people out there who have these like talents, or they have something else that they can bring just beyond listening or consuming information.
Every time I talk to somebody, they're so interested in learning more, whether it's about how to request a FOIA, DNA, anything. Everybody is always wanting to learn all the time. And that's a need we're hoping to fulfill with Uncovered, is to bring in experts who can talk to people, or engaging with attorneys or organizations who know how to make FOIA requests, and teaching our citizen detectives that. So it's we're asking for help, but hopefully we're also giving back in the form of education as well.
And a platform for our subscribers too. We recently had one of our awesome subscribers contribute a piece to our resource section about photo analysis.
Wow.
She's a total dream. She's like, I took this genealogy class in Boston. It was great. I learned so much. Would you care if oh my gosh, yes, please. So here's 8 tips of how to like look at a photo and analyze it from a different perspective. Oh, phenomenal. People have asked for those things, and to have someone say, hey, I learned about this and I would love to share it. We want to be able to amplify that. Knowledge transfer is huge, because we all have something we can learn, but we also all have something that we can teach someone else. We may not think that, but just having a conversation with someone and say, hey, have you thought of it from this different perspective? Or did you know, here's a database you could use, or here's a website that you could use. I was talking with a subscriber the other day and I was like, so what's your process? And she was like, people laugh, but I mean, girls usually do this if their girlfriend has like a new boyfriend or a new significant other, and you totally like go a deep dive. And I was like, yes, 100%. She's like, I look on Venmo and property records. I was like, yeah, people don't think, but those are really good research tools. And it may just be in passing, but those tell you such a different story too. And just to have someone tell you like, oh, here's what I use. What do you use? That's wonderful.
Venmo, that's a good one I haven't heard. I love that.
I haven't heard that one either, and I'm doing case research.
They would be really open with their settings, and you could see everything that everyone like. You could see where relationships fell apart, where people were like paying rent and then they're not anymore. But so now funny. It's a little bit on lockdown, so it's just kind of people but it still tells a story of, with who did this, where were they at this time, how much were they spending. But yeah, Reply All has a really good podcast about like the first parts of Venmo and learning what you can from it. So yeah, I highly recommend.
Ashlee and Rachael continue to talk about how for a lot of people who consume true crime, we're looking to be better consumers of the information that's out there. And so for a lot of us, that means following call to actions and being better advocates. So whether that's posting to social media or tagging a local police department or DA about a case, it's little things like that that we all need to be better at doing. And Uncovered wants to help facilitate that kind of community. There are skeptics out there in the law enforcement community who say that crowdsourcing doesn't work, or why should we entrust citizens with cases, So what would you say to somebody who says that this can't work?
I would say there's so much publicly available information that's out there that a fresh set of eyes cannot hurt. We're not asking to have state secrets or to have all of the intricate information. That would be great if we get to a point where we have that great of a relationship. But just to be able to show people how to be a thoughtful consumer of information, particularly of these cases that are not just stories that you listen to, but they're actual victims who have families. But just this notion that there's stuff out there that if you just had someone look at it from a different perspective, who is diverse in their opinion or their background or knows how to use technology differently, how great could that be? And the notion of collective impact, we're seeing all over the place of people standing up and saying, hey, I can contribute to something bigger than myself and actually make an impact. We just saw that last week with Wall Street, where people on Reddit were like, hey, let's organize. Who's to think that that would have happened? So why can't we apply that to cold cases? And why can't we apply it for information that is sitting there needing to be organized in a way that makes sense how the human brain works, not just papers in a file, but being able to apply technology to it and having people who have different perspectives look at it. What's the harm in that? And we don't want to impede on anything. Our first rule is to do no harm. But we also want to be thoughtful in what we're doing.
And I would just add that that is a fair skepticism of the true crime community in the past. There are anonymous discussion boards where people can cause a lot of damage and have hurt victims and their families through, some of the things they've said. But Uncovered aims to be different, where we're not going to be an anonymous social platform where you can say and do anything without consequences. While we do want to encourage discussion, as Ashlee said, our motto is to first do no harm. And we try to validate our information as much as we can. We're not interested in trafficking and crazy theories or speculation. Our goal is just to put real factual information out there and give people that safe place to go where they can trust the information. And the other thing is we're trying to look at cold cases, ones that have become stagnant. And I guess I would say what they've done in the past isn't working. So why not try something different at this point? And perhaps we can make a difference.
Like me, the creators of Uncovered believe in ethical citizen detective work. So when you go to their website, you have the opportunity to download their free citizen detective guide. This guide was designed to help give you the knowledge and the language that you need to know to make an impact in the field. But it also serves as a way to refine your skills and uncover new talents. Take a listen.
For us, it was an opportunity to start from somewhere because, again, so many people are like, what could I do? What could it? Well, great. Just educate yourself. That could be the first opportunity of download this just to learn more. And a lot of it is stuff that people probably already know, but to have it in one location, to know that how to do a Boolean search in Google will bring back different results. Oh, yeah, I learned that in high school many years ago, but now I remember how to do it. Or all the databases for missing people and all the URLs so you could go and find information that's not just a NamUs or a Charlie Project, which are wonderful, but there's the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, there's a Trans Doe Project, there's all of these other places that you could go to find information. And just some sciencey things like how they calculate like the body temperature, and like that could really impart like the time of death for someone, or different types of evidence, and just all this information and just in one spot is a good jumping off point. And this is just our first version. We are getting such great feedback from the community because we know that there will be different versions of this where we update, we add more information. You may see something on Venmo pretty soon. So there's an opportunity to add things in there, but we're also working on a workbook to be able to tie it together. So on our site where we visualize cases, we outline overview, there's timeline, there's maps, there's sources, there's people. We're working on an opportunity to have kind of a downloadable version of that because we know people don't just live on screens. This is our life now, but the intention that you have to have some of that tactile work and then to be able to provide an opportunity to put it back online. So we want to be able to provide these tools for people so they can educate themselves, but then join a bigger community to be able to have that knowledge transfer.
And I think the Citizen Detective Guide also is a broader part of a discussion we have about what is truth. We kind of see that in the media right now, but when we're talking about victims and victims' family, the truth matters a lot. And so, we've put together a research guide, like, what does the truth mean to us? It means that you're looking at public databases, government websites, newspapers. You're not just getting it off some sketch web page, right? And, we're always mindful of using correct pronouns and not naming children and things like that. And so for us, it's that broader discussion about truth and being ethical and responsible.
So the last thing that Rachel, Ashlee, and I talked about is that if you're a family member or you have a friend that was missing or murdered, trying to be an advocate can be incredibly draining and sometimes really difficult, whether it's having to create a Justice For page or even trying to launch your own podcast to get more eyes and more listeners to hear about it. It can feel like too much for a lot of people. If you're looking for an ethical way to get your loved one's case out there for a new perspective, this part is for you.
They can contact us via our website. We have a case submission link on there, on the visualize page, but also on the contact us. They can contact us through social media. I'm in it all day long, so I will be the one to respond back to you. So yeah, reach out. So if you have a case that you just think that we should put on our list, please do that. But definitely if you're a family member and you want to get more eyes on the story, we've been fortunate enough that we've been able to work with some really great people, especially in their mission to get peace, justice, and closure. So we've been able to work with Karen Bodine's daughter, which has just been wonderful. And I know that she's pushing a lot, particularly the anniversary was just recently and they held a public visual. So even to be able to add another layer and getting that out in front of people and then connecting them with another podcast that we've been working with. So there's another opportunity. So it doesn't just end with us. We want to be that connector with other opportunities that are out there. And Rachel mentioned we're working with the Brandon Lawson case was just also a great opportunity to be able to get that information out there. We know people are talking about it, but the more we talk about it, that social pressure opportunity. So please do reach out. We try as much as we can to layer on any For Justice For page so we could see what's already out there, what are people working on, so we could come side by side and just leverage our platforms that we have. But we're not going to get everywhere. So that's a great opportunity for someone to reach out to us and say, hey, have you thought of this? I have this that I can contribute.
Yeah. And for me as the researcher, to talk to the family members, I really want to know who their loved one was. I think so many times people have a tendency to focus on their flaws rather than who they were as a person. And, if that person had a drug addiction, we all have issues. So we want to bring it back around to who that person was as an individual. If they had a pet, what they loved to do, what they didn't like to do, because I want people to be able to identify with that victim and see themselves in them. And I think if we do a good job at doing that, then we can really inspire people to help us. So I'd love to hear stories about the victim that we're profiling in that case, so we can really bring them to life for our community.
This is just the last question I have. So on your website, you guys have this one quote that when I first read it a bunch of months ago, I was like, oh, like that hits me in such a way, it's like somebody like articulated that, where you guys write that families deserve answers and victims deserve a voice. So I'm just wondering, in your words, when you hear that, like, what does that mean to you and why does this platform matter?
Yeah, I think that matters because unfortunately that there are so many cold cases that exist out there, and combined they turn into a statistic, or they turn into a genre that people start to listen to. But at the root, it was a person. To Rachel's point, they had their quirks. They had their likes, their dislikes. They were an individual, and they have a family who misses them, who wants to know what happened and needs that closure. And for a lot of victims too, their voice has been silenced. And unfortunately, when it starts to get to be the perpetrator is talked about instead of the victim, it's silenced for a second time. So that reminds me so much of Samuel Little and all of his victims, that they're still trying to find out who these women were. And unfortunately, it's led with one of the most prolific serial killers instead of the 43 women who still need their identities given back to them. And that's a distinct opportunity that the community can come together collectively and help to do that.
And I think for me, it's just not okay that some people have been overlooked because of the way they just needed to get through life at that moment, or their sexual orientation, or the color of their skin. It's just not okay. And I hope that we can help right some of those wrongs along the way. The thing that we have to remember is that nothing will ever change if nothing ever changes. And so Uncovered is trying to change it, change the discussion, change the way we do things, and hopefully things change. So for everybody out there that wants to make a difference in this area, I think if we all band together, then things will change.
Yeah. I was really struck by the poet at the inauguration, and the line that really struck me was what just isn't justice. And to Rachel's point, stuff's not working now, and just because it's happened before doesn't mean that it's justice. So why just rely on old means or old opportunities that we can provide an opportunity to really make an impact?
Special thanks again to Ashlee and Rachael for sitting down with me and talking to me about Uncovered, the latest platform for citizen detectives to become better advocates and true crime consumers. If you want to download the free Citizen Detective Guide, I'll leave a link in the description below. If you're looking for any more true crime content, I would suggest checking out any of my other YouTube videos, or even heading on over to my blog to learn more about some cold cases that really need your attention. I'm also on every social media platform, so you can find me there. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.